Hi, my name is Ivy Starnes. I'm a gaited horse trainer in Fort Worth, Texas, coming to you live from Winslow, Illinois today. We are talking about part 2 of what if you're new to gaited horses, or even if you're just going to look at a gaited horse. What should you look for or look out for when you go to buy? There are so many tips, and I know that I will get lots of suggestions on things I missed, and I will possibly do another video about this topic. But I wanted to go over some basics since this was one that was asked for. Okay, you're going to look at a gaited horse. Let's just get a few things out of the way. No matter what horse you buy, you're probably going to have to do some work to help the horse maintain his gait, if the horse is gaiting anyway. Do not just believe the seller that says the horse is gaiting smoothly. You want to see a video of it, and you want to make sure that you're hearing that pucka 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 sound. Now, some of you are very comfortable fixing the gait if it's not perfect, and you're just looking for a great horse. That's totally fine. So ignore any of the suggestions. But there are some horses that I would say are going to make it very difficult for you to actually get gait. One of them, very biggest tip I can give you when you look at gaited horses is don't buy a horse that is super pacey. This is always true because if your horse that you look at is a little trotty, it's much easier to fix than a horse that is very pacey. Now there's certain kinds of horses that give me a little bit of a red flag for their paciness levels. When they have a longer, skinnier neck and they have their heads up and they are doing a dead pace. And that's what they show throughout the whole video. Those are big warning signs that this horse is probably going to be difficult to get out of the pace. The other horse is a horse that is a little bit chunkier, maybe a little overweight. They have their head a little bit lower and they're just pacing. This is actually almost a harder kind. They may be calm, but they're already pacing with their head down, which means that there's a lot more you have to do to get them to gait. So those are two horses to be really sure you want to put in the work to get the gait before you go buy them. So that's really important just on the gaited horse, just getting gait. You'd much rather see a horse that gets trotty or what's called square, trotty, diagonal, than lateral or pacey. This is pretty much true across the board no matter what breed you get. All right, next thing. Watch out for big bits. When you go to look at a horse, watch out for the horses that have very big shanked bits. Many people ride their gaited horses with some kind of a shank, and that's not the end of the world. But some horses on these videos have quite big shanked bits, and their reins are tight all the time, or they don't look like they stop nicely. Those are big red flags that you're getting a horse that needs major retraining. Doesn't mean you shouldn't buy it, or doesn't mean that that horse isn't awesome. But be aware that you can't just go home and put your mild bit on him and expect the horse to stop. You're actually probably getting a horse that needs lots of training. Watch out for horses that don't walk. Watch for horses that on the videos are never walked out on a loose rein. You want to see them walking down that road both directions on a loose rein to know that they'll go away from home and come back and that it's no big deal. And they shouldn't look all sweaty. I saw a video someone sent to me of this horse, and it did walk, but the horse was covered in sweat. Now, maybe it was a hot day, but I'll tell you what, I can work my horses, and they still walk, and they're not covered in sweat. So be aware. And even just a horse in a video that's covered in sweat, that's a red flag, period, no matter whether they walk or not. So definitely watch out for that. If anybody has any suggestions when buying a horse, please put them in the comments below. Watch out for horses that have the head up. Now, I don't mean a little bit up, but I mean they're very high. They're high all the time. This is another red flag that they're going to be quite nervous. They may, depending on their age, have already damaged their back and their joints. Maybe not. Some people argue that they have gaited horses that have their head up all the time and they never get damaged. Okay, but do you really want to take that chance? And you can. It's up to you. And be aware that you'll need to do major retraining for head down. If the horse has a tie down, major red flag, that horse has behavioral issues that I felt were bad enough to put a tie down on. And I don't know what kind of person thinks they're going to put a tie down on a horse for a trail video, for a sale ad. Do you know that you should never trail ride with a tie down? Would you like to know a very almost tragic story that I just happened to see? I was there in person. I was on a trail ride with maybe 10 people. One rider had her horse with a tie down. I mean, the horse was being okay. We went to cross some water and I think her horse went in at first. Well, it turned out that this very small looking puddle was a gigantic water hole, and her horse went into the water. Well, for most horses, they put their head up and they clamber out, but her horse couldn't put its head up. You know why? Because it had a tie down on. It had a tie down that kept it from putting its head up and threatened to drown the horse. They fortunately got the tie down off and the horse and rider out, but it was touch and go. And that was something easily avoidable. Take the tie down off. Do not trail ride ever, ever with a tie down. Okay. Watch out for reins that are always tight. So when you're watching the sale video or watching the person riding the video, if their reins are often tight, they're tight when they mount, they hold one rein tight when they mount, they are going down the road with the reins somewhat tight, those are red flags that the horse is not relaxed enough that you can just drop the reins and have a relaxed ride. Do you want that kind of a ride? And if you do, that's fine. I'm not saying don't buy the horse. Always do a pre-purchase exam with the blood draw for drug tests. Now, a friend of mine really advocated this, and she said she would do this with any horse she bought, including from close friends, because there are drugs that stay hidden in the system that you won't know and stay for 30 days. But a blood draw and a blood test can check for it. And I can't remember the name of the drug. Hopefully someone will comment, or I'll add it in the comments once the video is done. You must do this, especially if you're not just paying a little bit of money, or just because you don't know. It could be a calm horse. 20 days later, you have a different horse. There's so many stories about that. Check for that. Check the feet. Check to see if they're shod. Have they always been shod? Do they have foot problems? Can they go barefoot? If they say they can't go barefoot, ask why. Ask, are they barefoot in the winter? Some people keep them shod all year round. That is a problem. That could mean major feet issues. Be aware. You want to know what you're buying and the potential problems. Check for thrush. Just take a look at it. Maybe send pictures to your farrier. Ask about the best thing and the worst thing about a horse. I always do this. I ask about this when it comes to cars. Ask what's the best thing about the horse. And they may say, this horse is scared of nothing. And you're like, okay, that's a good sign. And you ask what's the worst thing. And they're like, well, there's nothing. Not a thing. This horse is amazing at everything. And you're like, really? It's amazing at everything? Are you sure? Like, there's not one thing. Like, you could say, well, he doesn't stand perfectly at the mounting block. Or, the buddies leave him and he does get worried. Or he doesn't want to cross the water first, but he will cross if he's second. Or he's a little scared of bicycles. Or chickens scare him, or pigs. Or sometimes he doesn't be caught in the pasture. Could be anything. And speaking of catching, make sure you at least see the person catch the horse, or maybe they offer to let you catch it. Usually I would let someone else catch it, but you want to see that done and not just find the horse tied up when you get there. Watch out for horses started young. If horses are started at 18 months to 3 years and they're ridden hard, be aware that that can be physically difficult for the horse's body and could lead to problems later. It doesn't have to, but it could. Watch out for horses only tacked up in cross ties. So in a lot of videos that I've seen recently, especially, horses are tacked up, but they're in cross ties. Now, there's nothing particularly wrong about cross ties, but do you know if this horse will be tacked up, tied to a trailer, or tacked up in a round pen without having to be tied up? I know lots of horses that I think were only ever tacked up in cross ties and are actually scared of the saddle and scared of you putting it on them and will not stand still. Again, this can totally be trained and worked through, but you need to know, because when you get home, if you don't have cross ties, you might be dealing with a situation you weren't expecting. Watch out for horses that only gait uphill. So in the video, if they only show the horse gaiting on a slight decline and then it paces downhill, be aware the horse probably has a gaiting problem. And then don't just let the owner tell you they are smooth from the videos. You want to see it in the videos, and then preferably if you go ride the horse, you want to feel it for yourself. It's very, very true. You want to make sure. Now, things to look for that are positives. Look for horses that are very calm, that are loose reins, that people mount from a loose rein. They mount from something that the horse goes up to. They are more trotty than pacey. They seem more slow than fast. You can always add speed. They ride them away from home and ride them back. They're willing to show you anything. So if you contact them and said, I'm really interested, I'd love to see a video of this, you didn't include this. And they're like, sure, we're gonna get that for you in a couple days. And they do it. Watch out for people that are horse traders. They get horses in, keep them for a month or two, and then sell them. It doesn't mean these horses aren't good, but it means they don't know everything about them, and you never know if they're going to sell it out from underneath you. Gone, seemingly, are the days of the handshake and someone's word, holding a horse until you get there. I'm sorry. I can't fix that. Be smart. That's all I can say about that. Good things. When they tell you everything about the horse, they list in their ad, they should list everything they know about the horse and tell you the level of rider the horse needs, including if it's a advanced or beginner advanced or a husband horse, but make sure that you don't just go off of a short description. They should have a long description of the horse. When I would list my horses, I included things like crosses mud, crosses water, good with cars, good with chickens, not good with cars, loads under the trailer great, doesn't like to go by themselves. I mean, you want the good and the bad in there about the horse. Now, I will tell you, sometimes horses have something very minorly wrong with them that doesn't affect them, like they may have a little scar and the vet's already cleared it. And usually I would list that in the ads. In the past, I don't always do that. And then they see it when they get there and then they do a vet check, but usually they end up buying the horse anyway because they have time invested. Even watch out for people who still offer return policies. It doesn't mean they're dishonest, but make sure that the return policy is something you can live with. So let's say there's 30 days or you bring the horse back and pick a different one. Make sure they have a variety of horses you can pick from. Otherwise, you may not be happy with your second pick. And make sure that you're close enough to do that. Otherwise, there's no point in having a return policy if you're so far away that it's prohibitive to take the horse back. So be aware. That's not dissing anybody, just being aware. Marlis says, no perfect horse. A horse is being a horse. Very true. Sherry says, I heard my Tennessee walking horse gelding was in the cross ties when my friend went to purchase him and saddle up. He's very afraid of being saddled, so Ivy hit the nail on the head with that. It's a big one that I really only realized in the last year, but I'm telling everyone who sends me videos to look at, if I see the horse being tacked up in cross ties, be aware that you may not have a horse that likes being saddled up, and you can't tell because they're in cross ties and they can't move. So I would always ask to see a horse tied, single tied, like to a post or to a round pen or something, or even loose and saddled up. So be aware, watch for those. Thank you for commenting, Sherry, because I think people don't realize the significance of that. I bought a couple horses and one of them is definitely scared of being saddled up, which we're working on. Okay, other things to be positive. If the horse is trotty instead of pacey, this is a positive thing. If the horse has a smaller bit or a snaffle bit and the horse easily stops and turns, a good thing. Showing some of the things that people do with horses to show they're bomb-proof, showing them crossing water, showing them next to a four-wheeler or a gaiter. Those are all really positive things. Some sellers out there do a very, very good job, and I would still vet check them, but they show you so many things that the horse does. But there's many things to watch out for. Watch out for horses that don't have papers. The age could be very different from what they're claiming, unless they've owned the horse its entire life. And could they be lying? Sure, but lots of people don't lie, and they've just owned it. My horse Firefly doesn't have papers now, but I would like to get papers for her, but I've owned her since she was born on my property, so I know how old she is, and that's fine. My mare Serenity doesn't have papers, but I know how old she is because she was 4 when I bought her. So things like that are okay, and I've owned her for like 8 or 9 years now. So I know how old she is, maybe less than that, something. Anyway, but it's important to kind of have an idea of the age. There are good rescues to buy from. They'll have done a lot of this vetting, pre-purchase, and they'll tell you about it versus a private seller that's just there to make a buck. There are a couple horse rescues on the East Coast that are not charging a lot for their gaited horses, and they are honest. They will tell you everything about the horse, and they've already worked with the horse, and sometimes they've already owned them for a year to know everything about them. Oh, another question you can ask is, how does this horse do when it's not ridden for 3 months? Oftentimes, horses I sold, I knew that. At some point, I will have horses for sale that are in Idaho, and I rode these horses, and most of them hadn't been ridden in like 7 months or 8 months, and they were amazing. So I can tell you for a fact they do well even when they've been off. So really important things to realize. If anybody has other suggestions, I will make another video. Stay tuned. Got one more video coming to you guys today. I'm going to show you a video of me riding a horse that bolts. And it's going to be a short video, obviously, but I want to talk really briefly about things to do and not do in this particular situation. It will not apply to every situation, but that's coming up, what to do when you ride a horse that is bolting, which is one of the questions I got yesterday. Thank you guys so much for watching. You got this.